This is cyclone recovery advice from ABC Local Radio.
Don't know if you can actually see the picture there, but the view from the Cardwell range, you can see the Cardwell channel, the Hinchinbrook channel, from the road, which is usually covered in rainforest. So you can see how devastating the winds have gone about cutting through all the bush, and I don't know if you can see up there, but basically every tree is without leaves, and then every other tree after that has fallen down. So the environment here has been massively devastated by Cyclone YASI. Well, I'm driving north from Ingham into Cardwell, and it's about 3 days, I think, since Cyclone YASI crossed the coast. So I haven't actually recorded basically what we did chronologically, so I might just run through that so I've got a record of it. So I think it was Tuesday afternoon I met up with Today Tonight and crew and some storm chasers from Townsville and we had a meeting down at the Seaview Hotel on the Strand regarding Cyclone YASI. We had our meeting and I decided to come up on Tuesday night just so I could survey some of the towns beforehand, just as far as shooting locations were concerned. So the other Storm Chaser boys stayed in Townsville that night, as well as the Today Tonight crew, and I came north, and as I was travelling north actually, there's this really interesting thing where I contacted the boys in Townsville and said, can they look at the radar for me, because I see lightning out to sea. The sky was lighting up and YASI was still probably at least 800 kilometres east at that point. And it was a very bizarre occasion because the sky was completely clear, stars out, really hot, really humid, and lightning flashing from over the horizon. So the only thing I can think of is, and I know that YASI was in a very strong development stage at that point, so I'm guessing that YASI was throwing lightning out into the upper atmosphere, and that's what I was seeing from the coast south of Ingham, about 800 kilometres away. So I got into Ingham probably about 9 or 10 o'clock on Tuesday night and managed to survey the town enough and found some good locations I could bunker down in if I wanted to try and shoot during the storm. I then proceeded north to Cardwell and probably got into there late night, maybe about midnight, somewhere around there, and scoped the town out and surveyed it a bit for dwellings and things to hopefully withstand a Category 5 cyclone. At that point, storm surge had been mentioned, but it wasn't a major factor at that point. So I got to Cardwell and had a bit of a look around as much as I could during the night hours, and ended up sort of having a bit of a nap down on the Esplanade area of Cardwell, which I believe doesn't exist anymore, which we'll see later on. And had a bit of a yarn to some of the locals there. There's one old fella that lived actually right on the coast, which I wouldn't mind catching up with and seeing how he went. And he sort of suggested, oh well, it's just going to be a little bit of a blow, you know, we've had them before, we'll have them again. So very complacent. And also had a long chat with one of the ladies that worked at the fish and chip shop and service station on the front there, on the front road there. And she was probably complacent too. She was wanting to go back to Port Hinchinbrook and stay there and sit the storm out there. So I wouldn't mind just seeing how she went too, because it's possible that up to a 6 metre storm surge went through Port Hinchinbrook. So I wouldn't mind trying to actually see if I can actually see any markers of storm surge in that area. So, and I've got a few names of other people I'm going to try and help out. Some relatives of a friend of mine They probably haven't had power for nearly half a week to a week now, so even if it's something like just charging mobile phones or something for them. And there's another friend of a friend whose boat actually got sunk in Port Hinchinbrook, so I'm going to attempt to get some photos there for insurance purposes for him. So there are a few little tasks for the day. I'd like to actually document some footage of the devastation around the place. As I'm driving through here, there's pine forests and everything is just completely devastated basically. As you normally would come through here, you would this forest is usually really thick, but you can see basically every tree has been ripped, has had its leaves ripped off, and really all that's standing is twigs, and I'll be surprised if some of this forest actually survives. And you can probably see in front of me and behind me I think it's the same, is we've got convoys of trucks. The ones in front of me are fuel trucks. This one's carrying aviation fuel, and the ones in front are actually carrying power poles. So a large amount of the power infrastructure has been decimated. So it's quite likely many regions in North Queensland are going to be without power for up to months, because some of the main transmission lines were also taken out, including the I know they'd probably be 30-metre high steel towers were crushed to the ground, which I've actually seen on some news coverage. So we're heading in towards Cardwell, and we'll see what greets us there. And on a side note, I don't know if you can see it, but we actually have a thunderstorm developing to our north. So amongst all the clean-up effort, nature's not giving up yet, and you actually see the anvil possibly shooting up over the top of the trees there. So it's quite likely we're going to have a thunderstorm coming through this area, or onto the coast just north of Cardwell in the next hour or two. So Mother Nature just doesn't stop.
Thanks, caller. Lydia in Heatley, you might have similar problems. We're happy to hear from you. Here's our number, 1300 630 222.
And if you can see to the side of the road there, these were all pine plantations, and they've been completely obliterated. This pine plantation here, you'd be lucky if 5% of the trees are still standing. So we are sort of entering probably what you'd call ground zero for Cyclone YASI. We're on the southern outskirts of Cardwell here, and where this was all lush pine forest and rainforest, it's pretty well been reduced to nothing.
Hopefully things will relax a little. You can get a bit more done now that the kids are back at school. Some schools aren't open rather, and if you're wondering about your school, you can go to deta.qld.gov.au.
We're actually approaching the outskirts of Cardwell here and Port Hinchinbrook. You might see the sign there. So we're going to attempt to enter Port Hinchinbrook and actually get some photography of a boat that belongs to a friend of a friend of a friend for insurance purposes.
Industry, we may have a population decline, serious population decline in these areas.
The head of the Recovery Task Force says countries will need to stand behind Queensland to recover from natural disasters. HC and Nick Slater said some infrastructure repairs have been done, some communities may suffer continuing.
My real concern now is for the families, for the communities, but you can only take so many knots, and all of Australia has got to come together to support those communities and the families and individuals who are really hurting so much at the moment.
Fred Goebel, the Executive Director of the Australian Red Cross, said dozens of volunteers are working